Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं भूलते. We are back this week. Abhinandan Sekhri is again missing in action. I think he's just may have landed from Boston, and he'll be back next week though, and I'm sure he'll have plenty of stories to tell us from his
I've
visit.
heard something different.
What?
I think he's not coming back because he had invested some money in the Punjab National Bank. Being a Punjabi.
Yes. And he's on the run Mr. Modi, Nirav Modi, for those of you who have a mischievous mind. Anyway, so we're here and we have a really special guest with us. But before that, I'll introduce our regular panelists. We have Anand Ranganathan with us.
Hello.
Anand Vardhan.
Hello.
Atul.
Hi.
And we have a very special guest with us, Aarti Tikku. She's Senior Assistant Editor with the Times of India. She's been a journalist for about 15 years. She's worked with HT, she's interned with BBC and the UN, and she's a really interesting voice on Twitter. She often gets bashed by the left and the right, both, intermittently. 1 week she upsets one set of people, the other
They call me odd and even journalist.
Yeah, odd. Oh, exactly. So we have with her, and we hope we'll get to hear fascinating stuff from her. I'll just do a little...
I have to add, she's one of those rare, probably the only Times of India journalist who actually is critical of Times of India as well. I don't know how she keeps her job, which is...
and didn't get fired.
And hasn't gotten
in these
fired.
times, it's tough.
I think the impression about Times of India is really misconstrued on social media and even otherwise. Times of India is a very liberal, open organization where you actually have freedom to speak your mind. I am part of the editorial team, and we often do introspect about how we function as a brand, as an organization, and as a journalistic.
But they have a really strict social media policy, no? That's what I have. Like, I've read multiple. You have to say one handle should be TOI, ET, one handle should be personal.
The proof of the pudding is in eating, right? The fact that I am on social media and I openly talk about issues and take positions on, politics and economics, and also media itself.
Yeah.
So
the key thing being the media, because often that's what gets journalists in trouble.
Yeah, I think
I have a theory. The theory is that Aarti has some dirt on Mr. Jain.
Dang, dang, dang.
Because she goes totally, but it's very refreshing.
That's what it's fun to follow journalists like that who speak their mind. Otherwise, it's just, you can't just use Twitter to plug your stories. I mean, that's just
I think you have to also take into account the fact that Times of India accommodates people from, say, far left to the far right, and
it's good business.
Yeah, if you have Sagarika Ghosh on the one end, there is Aarti Tikku on the other end in some ways.
By the way, you've been blocked by Sagarika.
So
she's blocked News Laundry also for some reason.
Oh,
she's blocked News Laundry the handle because
okay.
I don't blame her. Some of the things we've done with her.
So I would say
nasty.
that there's a wrong impression about Times of India. We are really and fundamentally a very liberal and open newspaper.
But that's true also with the brands they have. Like, you do have a Mirror now and you do have a Times now. But I think it also makes great market sense to cater to all sorts of people who are out there. It's good business sense, and they're good businessmen, I think, essentially. Anyway, let's get to just the news, the things that we'd be talking about. The news that dominated newspapers and TV news was a terror attack on an army camp, Sunjuwan military station in J&K. We lost 5 army personnel in the attack, 1 civilian, 10 people were injured, 6 of these people were women, one was pregnant. So it was a really dastardly and very, very, I think it really shook up a lot of people. On the back of this, there was a lot of controversy. As always, politicians jump in, they say, they do what they do. There was Mehbooba Mufti's remark where she said in the J&K assembly that you need to talk to Pakistan. That generated a lot of heat in Delhi media, got differently covered in Kashmir, newspapers in Kashmir. You had Owaisi saying that the men who had died were Muslim Kashmiris, so that also created some controversy. On top of that, there was the RSS controversy where Mohan Bhagwat at a rally in Bihar said that we just need 3 days to be battle ready. So all those things, it was just, I think the whole, half of the week just went into all this. Prime Minister Modi was visiting West Asia. He's pledged $40 million to the Palestinian development. We also had a wink that took over the internet and upset a few young boys in Hyderabad who felt that Islam was threatened by this wink.
Boys?
Yeah, they seemed young. I saw their pictures. Very proudly they were clicking their pictures with the police complaint.
Mid-age crisis वाले सब लोग थे उसमें.
The police complaint were all young. Then the subsequent Maulanas who made it to television were all midlife crisis guys. So that also dominated some news. And there was a PNB scam which involves Nirav Modi, who's done a lot of jewelry for all these. Like the only time I hear his name is when these stars get married.
डिफेंस कॉलोनी बहुत बड़ा शोरूम है.
बहुत बड़ा शोरूम है और बहुत होर्डिंग्स हैं.
Jewelry और ये सब.
Like yeah, he's
What's
really
the company's name?
It's called
Nirav Modi as a brand.
Yeah.
Like a jeweler shop is like.
They're hoardings all over South Delhi.
I've never heard of this.
They're hoardings. Yeah.
Acha.
And finally, there was a lot of rumblings in the media also. A journalist from India Today was sacked. She claims that she was sacked because of a tweet. The owners, of course, have a different story to tell, but this opened up a lot of questions on how free a journalist is really to criticize the industry. And, also the whole, it led into a very petty sort of a Twitter war. So we'll discuss all that, but we'll come to Aarti first. You're from Kashmir. And let's talk about the news coverage. I watched a lot of television news. That's what I do.
I actually don't watch television news
which is
at
why
all.
you're sane. But every time something happens in Kashmir, and it's almost every month now, some terror attack, some casualty or the other, it just gets reduced into there's rarely any conversation on what the solution is, or forget even solution is a large thing to think of, but the coverage is just Pakistan Murdabad, Hindustan Zindabad. That's about it. What is your impression of the coverage?
Well, I would say that Indian television news is a very different format from Indian print news. Television has followed the same trend as you see in the West, left versus right, and it's very high decibel. Thanks to Arnab Goswami, we also invented our own genre of news plus opinion. Earlier, television coverage of Kashmir used to be just reportage. Now, more than reportage, you actually have opinion. It's constant, 24 hours a day.
As a Kashmiri, what do you feel about? As a journalist and a Kashmiri, what do you think about all the opinions that are thrown out?
I think somewhere it was essential because for a long duration, the narrative on Kashmir was so lopsided and so in favor of, in a way, appeasing the militants, also in favor of appeasing the Pakistani side, that I think this high decibel coverage or high decibel opinion that we hear is going to slowly and gradually bring in an equilibrium of sorts. In the sense that, people have to start thinking that, no, you cannot pacify or appease militants in Kashmir, but punish them in the rest of the country. If a Maoist is committing violence and he is taken to court, or he gets killed in a counterinsurgency operation without any hysteria or without any slogans of Muslim victimization or say Naxal victimization, the same principle should apply in Kashmir as well. You cannot have double standards for stone pelters in Kashmir and stone pelters in Haryana. A lawbreaker is a lawbreaker. And therefore, that narrative needed real change, real shift. And I think TV has affected that shift. The only fear here is that it might take this narrative to the other end. And which is not good for a democracy like India, where we have various groups and you have to collectively take the country forward.
One thing I would like to ask Aarti, because she's there, is let us say, Aarti, that Pakistan acts on quote-unquote terrorism, and all the terrorism that is being sponsored by Pakistan vanishes. And then we get to talks with them. What does Pakistan want from those talks? What do they want? I don't get it.
Well, the thing is that you are making a huge leap here.
Yeah.
You are saying that Pakistan stops cross-border terror. And I, as a student of international relations and as a student of political science, believe that Pakistan actually will not stop cross-border terror, simply because it's a sub-conventional warfare. By that I mean that it is cost-effective and it has maximum impact.
Yeah,
you don't move or you don't invest hugely in your army, in your defense, or in a war. You just use minimum resources to raise even a dozen terrorists, and you send them across and they can create havoc.
So, you're absolutely right with what you've said. But my question was, assuming, let's say, hypothetical situation that Pakistan dispenses with all the cross-border terrorism, becomes a quote-unquote friend ready to come to the table. Point is, India has no, there is no, how shall I put it, no advantage or whatever, in those talks. What has India to gain from those talks?
You're right.
Because I don't see any grouse. I mean, what is it that India has to gain? I mean, you've basically narrated exactly what everyone knows, which is that Pakistan would never be friends with India, existential threat and so many other geopolitical scenarios.
Yeah.
Let us say it dispenses with terrorism. And okay, let's have talks. What has India to gain from those talks?
Even if that's dispensed away with, what do we want to talk about?
Right.
Let's talk about the good things.
So that's the point.
Yeah,
like the trade.
I don't think India really has an incentive to hold talks with Pakistan. India doesn't get to gain anything.
This is different from Israel and Palestine.
Yeah, whether it's economy, whether it's defense, whether it's trade. On any level, I don't think India really has an incentive because except for Pakistan, if you really look at the globe, India is actually has a great relations with Muslim countries in Middle East, including Palestine, where President Modi recently went and announced massive development projects. So yeah, you're right, Anand. I would agree with you.
Yeah, but I was just wondering, and then Anand, you can come in, that perhaps I see your point that there's no peace possibility, but perhaps you can at least contain it by dialogue, the situation, because things were not this bad, right? Like, we've had multiple terror attacks.
I have to interrupt you right here. When we keep saying that things were not this bad, we are actually promoting a false narrative. The fact is that India and Pakistan were into an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation soon after the parliament attack.
Yeah, almost war.
That was almost war. And Kargil 99 war was a real war, a conventional war. Also, the level of violence that you see in Kashmir today is way, way, way less than the violence in the early 90s. The number of terror organizations that were operational in Kashmir, and not just Kashmir, but across the country. You have had, Mumbai attacks. That was 26/11 was. What could be worse than that?
Yeah.
In one day you had such massive violence.
In terms of Kashmir, though, in the past 10 years, let's say in the past 10 years, have we seen the last, say, maybe 1 year as massive, like major in terms of casualties and attacks on army camps, attacks on
Yes, you could say that,
I'd say past
not
10
even
years,
in 10
not-
years. No, not even in 10 years. If you look at,
Post-Kargil, maybe.
I did mention that from 2008 to 2010, Kashmir did witness massive violence. In 2010, for example, over 100 youth were killed in Kashmir on the streets. So, no, I wouldn't say that, things are worse now. I would say things are actually pretty much in control. Especially, there was a period after 2010 when there was a drop in counterinsurgency operations in Kashmir. It was a policy choice, I would say. The fact that the number of militants which went up from 2010, as I did point out earlier, that 2010 was actually the fulcrum of the new age militancy that we are witnessing now. People who entered this new age militancy came out from 2010 violence. It created so much anger and so much, resentment and
also a certain
against
level
the
of
army and the
fearlessness
state.
that I think a lot of the young now, they just don't care. They just don't care about their lives,
They
the
didn't
lives in
care
front of
even
them.
in 1990, because I've grown up there, and I remember in 1989 I used to see young kids, as young as 8-year-old boys, 6-year-old boys on the streets lobbing petrol bombs on the CRPF. See, youth never cares whether it's in Palestine, whether it's in Kashmir, whether it's in Haryana, whether it's in Kerala. They never care. Youth is, youth. They have the adrenaline rush and they have to sort of channelize it somewhere.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that, this narrative that it's worse.
And it's usually good to actually then employ young people for your cause, whatever it is, because you'll find the most they're willing to do or go that extra mile. And
yeah, if you look at even at Middle East or African wars and civil wars in Africa, it's always the youth who drive these civil war violent movements. It's not the middle-aged or the people, senior citizens of any country.
Your view, Anand,
On what?
on lots of on whatever. Take your pick. Take the conversation forward or pick on whatever we've said. Or maybe you want to...
television media's take on Kashmir is perhaps a reflection of an absent part of the discourse for, say, last 20-25 years.
Like
that the relationship of, say, mainland voices with Kashmir. So that was missing in media. Means what the rest of ordinary Indians think about Kashmir. So that has perhaps got a voice through those television channels, sometimes lunatic, sometimes magnifying those voices. Means that was earlier it was very strategic, intellectual or diplomatic kind of perspectives that were getting their way to media. But now the relationship of mainland India, not saying that Kashmir is not part of mainland India, but with Kashmir, that has somehow got reconfigured in television discourse. Means that is one thing. Second is that Kashmir, like all conflict zones in the world, is an over-covered region. Means international media, everything is covered.
That is true.
Covered. So reporters find it very happening and is a place to cover. So there is also an oversupply of narratives. That's also a crisis.
I can just imagine this news consumer bombarded with narratives. Crisis.
And a third thing is say what was the last highest level talks happened? That was in December when Ajit Doval met his counterpart in Bangkok, I think. So and what was the last statement? India's last statement was that till terror is not addressed, there is no point talking. Now the old diplomatic school and the current governmental position differ. There are some old diplomats arguing that no talk is neither forward nor backward. It is no move at all. Whereas And there is a school of diplomacy arguing that, but talks are pointless too. Means you don't have, as they were arguing, any diplomatic advantage to gain through talks. So that is a zero-sum game being played out. So that has always been the case. So I think I am talking as pointlessly as the talks would be. so yeah.
Without a business class ticket.
Atul, there was on the back of this there was.
मैं दो बहुत लिमिटेड चीज़ों पे बात मुझे मेरे दिमाग में है कि
and then also touch on RSS after that.
हाँ,
the big thing that made a lot of news. RSS is battle preparedness.
महबूबा मुफ्ती ने जो कहा, इन प्रिंसिपल फंडामेंटली हम सब लोग इस बात पे राजी हैं कि बातचीत ही किसी समस्या का अल्टीमेटली हल हो सकता है, या बातचीत की टेबल पे ही अंत में आना है सबको, किसी लॉन्ग टर्म अगर सोल्यूशन की तरफ हम बढ़ रहे हैं। अब इसमें एक जो नुकसान है इस पूरी पॉलिसी में, जो ये जिस आरती ने बताया कि हम एक गलत फॉल्स नैरेटिव की तरफ जा रहे हैं कि राइज हो गया है, लेकिन हम पिछले एक दशक में देखेंगे तो जो सबसे बड़ा नुकसान हुआ है अभी, मतलब अभी इस सरकार की पॉलिसी से कि हम बात ही नहीं करेंगे, वो नुकसान ये हुआ है कि जो एक दशक में अचीवमेंट था, और ये केवल मोदी की सरकार की लापरवाही नहीं है, ये यूपीए 1-2 में हुआ, जो सीज़ फायर हुआ, जिस प्रेशर में सीज़ फायर हुआ आफ्टर पार्लियामेंट अटैक, और जिस तरह से दोनों सेनाएं, आप दोनों देश आपस में आमने सामने खड़े थे, उसके बाद उसका जितने बेहतरीन तरीके से अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी की सरकार के टाइम पे इस्तेमाल हुआ था, जिस तरह से दबाव में आके, जिसे आरती ने कहा कि पॉलिसी के तौर पे उन्होंने उस समय चेंजेस किए थे, सीज़ फायर हुआ, बहुत डाउन हो गई, कैजुअलिटीज़ डाउन हो गई, उसके बाद की सरकारों ने उसको और उससे बढ़ाने का, उसको एक स्टेप आगे ले जाने की जो कोशिशें होनी चाहिए थी, या उसमें जो इम्प्रूवमेंट होनी चाहिए थी, वो कोशिश कम रही, और अब उसका बहुत वर्स्ट फॉर्म दिख रहा है। दूसरा ये कि हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि आप ये मतलब पूरे ओवरऑल पर्सपेक्टिव में देखेंगे 50 साल के या करगिल के कॉन्सेप्ट में, तो ऑब्वियसली ये कम लगेंगी जैसा नहीं, लेकिन ये तो है ही है कि जो अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी के बाद से और करगिल या जो हमने पार्लियामेंट अटैक के बाद से अचीव किया था, उसमें तो उसका तो नुकसान हुआ ही हुआ है, और चाहे वो पठानकोट का अटैक हो या अभी की जो स्थिति है, उसमें एक और चीज़ है कि अब वो सिविलियन के ऊपर हमले नहीं है, ज़्यादातर सब इस्टेब्लिशमेंट सिक्योरिटी और जो सरकार के जो प्रतीक हैं उनके ऊपर जो हमले हो रहे हैं। तो उन हमलों के ऊपर ऑब्वियसली जो एक सरकार इस तरह की है हमारे पास, उसकी ये आज की तारीख में मिलिट्री माइट है, यही सारी चीज़ें मिलके आपको ये बेसिकली बार्गेन की आपके टूल्स हैं कि आपको उस वहाँ तक लाएंगे, बातचीत की टेबल तक लाएंगे कि आप अपनी मिलिट्री माइट का इस्तेमाल करेंगे। वो इस सरकार के साथ जो दुविधा दिख रही है कि बात तो नहीं करेंगे, बहुत साफ है कि बात नहीं करेंगे, लेकिन उसके बाद जब जो अचीवमेंट करना है, जो डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल से फिर जिन चीज़ों को अचीव करना है, जिसको आर्मी के जरिए अचीव करना है, वो अचीवमेंट नहीं है। अटैक वैसे ही हो रहे हैं, आर्मी के फ्रंट पे फेलियर, बार बार आर्मी के एस्टेब्लिशमेंट पे अटैक हो रहे हैं।
आई थिंक एक बहुत स्कैरी चीज एक्चुअली है कि कितने हाउ वल्नरेबल आर आवर आर्मी कैंप्स दैट यू हैड, आई मीन आई डोंट क्वेश्चन ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस इनपुट्स, आई मीन हाउ इज इट दैट दे कुड एंटर एयरफोर्स in such a, I mean, high, I mean, in a place like J&K. So that is one thing I didn't see many people talk about, but it's very scary to see that, I mean, army people, CRP people are living so vulnerably, like camps.
डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल में उतने इफेक्टिव साबित हो पा रहे हैं ना, आर्मी माइट के उसमें कि हम उसको पूरी तरह से रोक पाने में सक्षम हो रहे हैं, और हमारे पास सबसे बहुत पावरफुल मैंडेट वाली सरकार है, जिसका पूरा मतलब जिसका मैंडेट ही यही है, जिसका हमेशा से कहना यही है कि कश्मीर हमारे एजेंडे में सबसे ऊपर है। उस कश्मीर में हम पिछले 20 साल, 25 साल, 30 साल के दौरान कोई भी एक बड़ा अंतर नहीं देख पा रहे हैं कि उस कश्मीर की हालत में बदलाव आया है।
सुन लिया अफ्रीका मुफतखोरों, not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.